Hello and welcome to another Smaulgld live stream. Tonight is September 15th. It is Saturday night, and tonight we're going to be talking about JP Morgan's Comex vault shedding 1.19 million ounces of silver. And I remember the JP Morgan vault had been increasing for months. We're going to get into that. Nothing to report on the gold and silver markets as they're not open today, although let's quickly look at the cryptos. The cryptocurrencies have been up recently, and Bitcoin had gone up as high as 6,500. It's still up about 1% over the last 24 hours to about 6,500. Bitcoin Cash still down 443, down about 2.5%. Ethereum holding up at 218.76, up about 2.4%. Litecoin at $56. That's slightly off. It had been up about 58 to about 58. Litecoin Foundation had a summit. We'll cover some of that tomorrow night on some cryptocurrency developments. But tonight we're going to look at the JP Morgan Comex vault and all these stories about the commercials are long and what this means for silver. I got a lot of charts. I don't have a lot of conclusions, but I am going to show you some things here. We get a lot of assertions, people saying this happened and therefore this is going to happen. JP Morgan has X amount of silver, which we can't prove, and that the reason that they have this silver is because this is going to happen. They're going to profit on it. Now, we've discussed this before. First of all, you can't prove they have the silver. I mean, I just as easily say Goldman Sachs has silver. I mean, if JP Morgan wants to profit on this little scheme, then why wouldn't Goldman Sachs? Why wouldn't Morgan Stanley? Okay. But even assuming that you just play along with the whole thing, that they have a certain amount of silver, who even knows why they have it if they indeed have it? They could have it for the purpose of continuing to have it for purposes of keeping the silver price in check. And one of the theories I have, and it's not because I like to espouse theories based on just making up numbers, but if you're going to make up that JP Morgan has X amount of silver and that they're going to profit from it, I could say, okay, well, let's make up that they have a lot of silver, but the reason they have it is for the same reason why they've been keeping the price of silver short, keeping the price of silver low. Remember, the same people that have been promoting this JP Morgan is going to let silver go higher and they're going to profit from it are the same ones that are saying that, well, not all the same ones, but many of the same people are the same ones that say that JP Morgan acts for the government to keep the price of silver down. So why all of a sudden would they change? Just to make some money? I mean, they've been making money every year, $24 billion in net profits every year. It's not like they need silver. They need to throw away a major tenet of what they're supposed to be doing, which is keeping the silver price down just so they can make a little money. I said, well, maybe they have the silver so that if they get the price of silver down low enough, that maybe when that price is low, there may be some physical buying and you may get some disconnect in the market, and that wouldn't be good. So they would have the silver to deliver into the market in order to keep the prices low. Now, that's a possibility. I don't swear by that, but I don't even need to get to that point because I don't even think they have 800 million ounces of silver anyway. I'm just saying that you're dealing with a situation where you have two stretches. One, that they have the silver, and then two, the mythical silver that you can't prove they have it for a reason that you can't even prove that that's why they have the silver. So I'm just turning it on its head and say maybe they have the silver, if they do have it, which you can't prove that they have, for purposes of continuing to suppress the silver price. Now, as I was preparing for tonight's live stream, I was putting together the charts for you, and I was just trying to figure out this whole, oh, the commercials are long for the first time. It's the most historic thing ever. That means the price is going to rise. I came across the JP Morgan numbers, which I check every now and then, and they had been increasing. Remember the amount of silver that they supposedly have in their vault had been increasing, and it had gone up to 145 million ounces, 408,090 ounces. And that was the number on August 15th. I checked back again on September 6th. That's what it was. And then I checked today, as of September 13th, that number had dropped. And that's the first time I remember it dropping over the last year or so, when the JP Morgan vault had just been increasing and increasing. Now, if I wanted to play speculator and make up a whole story about JP Morgan has all this silver, including the silver in the Comex vaults, that well, now because the price has gone low and there's a lot of demand for silver, JP Morgan is now releasing some of that silver into the market to make sure that the price doesn't rise. I don't believe any of that nonsense, but if I was making up stories, I could say now that JP Morgan has released 1.1 million ounces into the market for purposes of suppressing the price. I don't believe that, but it is interesting that the JP Morgan Comex vault for the first time is showing a decline of 1.190987 ounces of silver. But let's go, and it doesn't make any sense to speculate on this or to argue with me on that because I don't believe it. But what happens, I'm trying to point out, in the silver market, people follow this stuff. They insist on things that they hear without proof, and then the speculation runs wild and everybody assumes that these things are happening, and maybe they're not. Now, what I wanted to go through was this idea of the net silver positions. And let me pull up some charts for you here, the commitment of traders. You know, you hear people talking about it, and you just take for face value what they're saying is somehow this is all true. There's two types of traders, your commercials and your spec traders. And generally, they're like yin and yang. And let's see, they should be coming up on the screen for it. And it's hard even to tell who they are because then there's non-reportables. Some say JP Morgan's in that group. They're also in the commercial group. But you can see from this chart here, this chart is showing you the commercials long and the commercial short. So it's not like the commercials are all long or the commercials are all short. They're both, but they end up with a net long or short position. And generally the commercials are net short. But they also have long positions, as you can see. If you look at the red, this is since 2015. There's been long positions by the commercials, and there's been short positions. But you can see the red base area is bigger below than it is above. And then the reverse is true with the non-commercials. They tend to be more long, and then you can see the thin blue line below there. That's their short positions, although they've been increasing their short positions. So this is kind of looks maybe like a Rorschach block, but let's take a look at what that means in the net. And then we're going to go back to our original chart that you saw on the screen. Let's pull that one up with numbers and dates. All right. So this chart is going to show you the last 3 years of the net positions of the commercials and the non-commercials. Okay. And this idea that somehow, because if you go all the way over to the far right, you see the commercials, the blue for the first time. You see since 2016 they're above. Looks like net that there's more commercial long positions than short. I'm not sure you read anything into that, because if we look through what I've done here is I've made these little segments with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12. Generally, you have this two sides of the trade. You have a certain group that's net long and a certain group that's net short, and you can see how the prices react to that. When you see the, you could argue that both sides are always right or that both sides are always wrong, depending on when you think they took their short positions. When people say that the commercials are always correct and that the specs are always wrong, that doesn't make any sense, because that would mean the specs would be out of money all the time. So it's almost, if you look at these, if you look at one, you can see in 2016 there was a net long position for the non-commercials, and then there was a net short positions for the commercials, and during that one period the price of silver rose. Now that would mean, you would think, that the reds were winning because they were buying on the way up. You can see up to number 1, and they made money on their long position, and these commercials, they were increasing their short position as the price was rising. Well, you would think, well, they're losing money. Well, no, then the price goes down. then you can see, if you look at the end between number 1 and 2, the shorts, they start selling off their shorts, and then the longs also bring their longs down as you go into number 2, and what happens? The price comes down. I guarantee you both sides of these trades are making money. They're playing it up and they're playing it down, and you could follow it all the way through with 2, 3. So the idea that somehow if you just look at this chart, you can see they're almost the same number of trades on both sides, or the same trends, where the longs are going long and the shorts are going shorts, and then you can see 3, 4 as it goes up. Then the longs are building their positions, and then also the shorts are building theirs below in the blue. And they get really excited when it gets up to number 5. They're all increasing their shorts in the blue, and then the longs are increasing their longs, and then someone wins, and then you can see it goes up and down. It's almost like a mirror trade between 1 and 12. And then you see where the price doesn't do anything. That's where I got that circle after number 10. Well, there you see, nothing happens. Why? Because neither side is particularly interested in going and opening up a lot of long or short positions, so the price doesn't move. But what's interesting is number 11. And this is why I think this is a tempest in a teapot when people are making a big deal out of this. Well, look at number 11. At 11, you have the reds, the non-commercials, the specs, doing a pretty big long position. And then you have a pretty big short position in the commercials in the blue. Typical. And that's when the price peaks. You can see number 11. Now, the price starts to move down from that number 11 over the last, let's say that's the last month and a half. Well, what happens? Exactly what you would expect to happen. That happened the last 3 years. The reds start to sell off their long positions as the price goes down, and the shorts also close out their short position. The only thing that's happened here is the trend is from 11 to 12, as you can see to the far right. The price continues to move down. That's a very, very steady price down. You don't have that in any of the past 3 years. You have that steady price down. All that's happened there is that the blues, the commercials, having continued to then sell off their shorts and actually go long. The reason they went long, if you look at it, is there's a long period of time where the price is going down. And it's the same thing that happens with the non-commercial longs. The reds, you can see they go down and the price keeps going down. They close off their long positions and then they go short. It's just because the price has gone down for so long that this has happened. You've had a steady decline, and you've seen this. It's not that the commercials have decided this is it, we're going long, and the non-commercials have decided they're going short. They're just following their normal course of trade. If you look back at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, it's a typical pattern. The price goes up, the longs increase their longs, the reds, the blues, the commercials increase their shorts, and then it all kind of switches around again. And then it goes back up, and then it goes back down, and it goes back up, and that's exactly what the commercials and the non-commercials do. They fight over that. Well, they've done fighting that, and it looks like the blues close out their shorts. They're at a point now, the price keeps going down. They got to go long. Same with the reds, the non-commercials. They've got to go short. But this will all work itself out. This doesn't mean that there's some big changeover, historic, and now JP Morgan is going to let it run. No, they're just making a point now where they've gone short, they've collected their money, and it looks like, well, they started at 1725 and they've ridden the thing down to 1390, whatever it was. Well, it's time to go a little long. But look at those positions. They're tiny. They're not huge. Now, I'd imagine if the price continues to fall, that those blue lines will get bigger and the red lines will get bigger going the other way. But at some point, I'd expect this whole chart to basically start to look like all the way back to number 1. As the price switches, they'll just flop around. So I don't think that there's anything to read into this. I could be wrong, but I haven't seen that there's any reason to believe this is some type of historic moment. It looks like it's just following the chart pattern. Now, some other things that are very important. Let's take a look, before we take a look at JP Morgan's new amount in their vault. Right now you're going to look at what you hear all the time. This massive idea that somehow there's no silver and that they're trading so much silver. And what they have here, this is the concept. All these charts are Nick Laird's Gold Charts Are Us. Really great charts, good service, about $180, $200 a year. Now, concentration of traders in the CFTC. This shows the days of world production to cover short contracts. Now, this goes through September 11th, But if you notice silver, because it's such a cheap market, the value of the contracts is so high, and we know that the amount of silver is relatively low, they actually have to take like a half a year's production. They're like trading 400 million ounces of silver, and obviously there isn't 400 million ounces of silver there. However, there kind of is, and I'm going to show you what I mean. That may look like a lot, and you're like, well, that's ridiculous. They're trading around all silver that's not really there. Well, if you believe the Comex vaults, what they say they have in them, especially the last couple of years, there kind of is that much, almost that much silver there. Here's what I'm talking about. The chart you're looking at now is showing the amount of silver that is in the Comex depositories, including the JP Morgan vault, which supposedly has, well, now it doesn't have 145.5 million, it has 144 million ounces. But in the total Comex vaults, including the Brinks, the CNC, the Scotia Mercado, all the different Comex approved defaults with those 1,000-ounce eligible and registered silver bars, they've got almost 300 million ounces. And you can see that. Look at that dramatic increase since 2011, when the total amount of silver in there was about 120 million ounces. So apparently there's 300 million ounces almost in the Comex vaults. Now, if you have all those ounces in the vault, what does that mean for trading? Well, let's take a look at the trading here. Okay, so what we're going to look at now are the Comex warehouse. Whoops, I hit default instead of browse. Let me get back to that. Thought I had it up there. Hold on. We're going to get you a very nice looking chart that'll explain what 300 or 290 some odd million ounces means. This chart is showing you the Comex warehouse total silver stocks to cover. So what you're looking at here shows, I'll have to take you this little scrunchy here, but I can take you through it. If you look at the third box down, that's the one that's basically showing you, but only in a line format instead of a graphical format, about 292 million ounces in total that's in the Comex vault. So you can see that that's the number that goes up. Okay. The open interest is the box above it, and that shows you how many contracts there are. And you can see there's some decent open interest there. It looks like 1 billion ounces. I can't read that there. And then you have the price up at the top. Now at the bottom is what I want to draw your attention to. This is what Nick calls owners per ounce. It's not really owners per ounce. It's on the understanding that if everybody who is short and wanted to take delivery, would there be enough delivery for them? Now we know as a matter of practice that maybe 2 to 3% of contracts, or 4 or 5, but never anything significant of the contracts actually turn into a physical delivery situation. They either roll them over or they expire by their terms. But even if everyone on the Comex was a contract, today, if you look, the average owners per ounce is only 3.5. And the reason for that is there's 293 million ounces of silver in the Comex vaults. Well, you say, well, hold on a minute. Not all of that's eligible for sale. Well, it kind of is, because that's silver that's in the format of those 1,000 ounce good delivery bars. Well, okay, let's take a look at how much silver is just eligible. I'm going to pull that up for you. That was the total amount. When you get to that, well, then it's 5 owners per ounce. This is the silver that's good form, ready to go, but not registered. So there's 5 ounces per owner. You can see that there. Now, how much of it is registered? Not so much as you would expect, but then again, it's a simple task that if somebody wanted to move their silver from eligible to registered, they could do it. And there it's only 11 to 1. And if there was a rush on the registered silver, people wanted to take delivery, there's plenty more of that came from, because this is only 90 million worth of registered silver bars, when we know there's 290 million in total. So there's another 200 million 290 million ounces in 1,000 ounce bar size that could be registered. So I don't think that's a big deal, the owners per ounce. Yes, it's not 1-to-1, but it's not even close. It's never been close where the people who have their contracts are standing for delivery, because Comex trading for a good portion of them, those commercials, the specs, they're not there to buy or sell silver. They don't want silver. They're not going to do anything with it. They're there to make profit or to manipulate. They're not there, fiat profit. They're not there to buy silver. If you want to buy silver, you go to a broker and you arrange to have delivery. You don't play contracts to do it. Bullion dealers, they short silver on the Comex. They're never looking to take delivery. They're looking to hedge. So it's a fiat, it's a paper game for a reason. But the point being is, for a paper game, there's still a lot of silver there. There's 300 million ounces. Okay. What else did I want to show you then was, yes, the whole purpose of, well, the whole purpose of this live stream was to be, what does it mean that the commercials are long silver? And I just showed you probably nothing. And then I ran across JP Morgan's Comex vault, and I saw that they've actually shed some silver. Then I did my own speculation. But let's take a look now at the JP Morgan vault. I think this is the one. Yes. So this one shows the decrease now in silver. And I don't know, I wouldn't read anything into this either. I don't even read anything into it that they have 145 million ounces of silver in their depository, because we've seen double increases also in Brinks and in CNTs. Comex depositors, we saw that a couple of nights ago. We went through the large stockpiles of silver at the Comex. There's a total of 292 million ounces of silver in the Comex vault, and of which JP Morgan has 144 million now. But you could see they have a decrease there. Now, whether that's just a little window dressing, you know, just a 1.1 million drop, they really haven't. It's kind of been an inexorable rise up. There have been some drops. You can see July 2016. So whether this is the beginning of a trend downward, I don't know. It's interesting because the last time it dropped was probably back in March. There was a small drop. You can see there the far side. But if you can see from basically from 2017 to 2018, there was not one drop. It was all straight up. And it's basically been straight up since 2012 with a few differences. Now, what I do find interesting is that they did the registered stocks. So you could see to the left, the 5.122 million. That number has never changed as long as I've been watching this chart for like 3 or 4 years. And it didn't change, and yet the eligible stocks went down. So I don't know what they did to sell off those, you know, to get from 145,408,000 to 144, 217, 103 ounces. They must have registered to sell them, or they just moved them out of the depository without registering them and selling. I don't know. And again, I'll watch this daily to see if there's a lot of movement or any movement at all from the JP Morgan Chase silver stockpile. Now remember, this is silver that's in good delivery form. It's in those 1,000-ounce bars. It's in the JP Morgan Chase depository. We don't know if any or all of it belongs to them. They may have taken delivery of it, some of it in their name. It's hard to figure out how much of it is theirs. It's hard to figure out if any of it's theirs, even if they took it in their name. Did they take it in their name on behalf of a client? Who knows? So even this silver, I can't even say, but I'm willing to entertain that it belongs to JP Morgan, but I would never swear by that. And clearly, I would never say that they have any more silver than that, because there's nothing to indicate that they have 700 million, 800 million, I've heard up to 900 million ounces of silver. All right, well, that's what I wanted to show, was that, and I'll track this as necessary. If this 144 million goes down or up, we'll play along with it and see if it means anything. But the main purpose wasn't even to mention that, was to talk about what does it mean that those commercials are long silver now. And the way I look at it, and I want to get some input here, because it actually makes sense to me if you look at it from a chart purpose. I'll bring it up again. If you look at it from a charting purpose, it makes sense that the commercials are long, because generally what the commercials and the non-commercials do on the net and long short positions is they follow it up and then they unwind their positions. But when the position goes up for a long time or goes down for a long time, well, they end up having to get these periods where from 11 to 12 to the far right, you can see what are they going to do. It's been going down, down, down. You have to keep closing down your short positions. And finally, you got to do something. You might as well go long. And it's the same. It's a reversal on the non-commercials. They were long for a long time, but then they had to unwind because the price kept going down. They were losing that battle. So now they're short. And I think it's the function of, it's not their outlook on silver. It's just the way the game is played. You got a yin and yang going on between the longs and the shorts, the commercials and the non-commercials. And when the game goes on for too long, as you can see, it's been going on from 11 to 12 for almost 2 months. The direction is straight down. They've got to change their position. I think that's all that's happening. I could be wrong, but people are jumping up and down. Historic, first time. You can see those 2 blue lines. Commercials are net long. Doesn't mean anything to me. The price hasn't moved, but I would imagine that just given the tug and pull here, that probably would happen if you just look at any chart, not knowing anything about silver, is that this will get out of balance and the price would move up again, and then you start to see the reversal in the positions, and we'll start all over again with the ups and downs and ups and downs. Whether it means an overall trend going in one direction, I don't think so. I think if the price were to start to move up again, you'd see them start playing their games back and forth, and they change their positions, and then it would go up a bit and it would go down a bit, just like it always has. All right, let's see what questions we may have. A lot of people joining us. Apologize, supposed to be on earlier, had different issues, nothing to do with these charts. Good thing I had the charts ready, so I was able to jump right in once I was ready. All right, now Bill W. This comment was here about 4 hours ago. I don't know what it refers to. The metal was worried about me. Thank you. Did Smaulgld get abducted by silver-hungry aliens? They must, yeah. Sorry, I didn't even get a chance to check in. I'll let you know I'd be late, very late. Out of phase is out of here. This place is a sausage factory. Shark Air says buzz kill. All right, I think the newer comments are, John Murray, could a reset set the price higher? Yeah, that's another one of these things with these assumptions that somehow there's going to be a reset, there has to be a reset, and that somehow the reset has anything to do with gold or silver. I don't know. John Murray, did the U.S. Mint stop making silver rounds? Well, the U.S. Mint never made silver rounds. The U.S. Mint only makes silver coins. And I'll just make that distinction for you, John. Rounds are minted by private companies. Coins are only those that are issued by sovereigns, like the United States Mint makes U.S. Silver Eagle coins. The Canadian Mint makes Canadian Maple Silver coins. The Austrian Mint makes Austrian Silver Philharmonic coins. Sunshine Minting makes Sunshine Minting rounds. Chris Dwayne makes, I don't know, what are they called? Silver Shield rounds. He doesn't make coins. But to answer your question, if you meant did the U.S. Mint stop selling silver rounds, yes, they stopped selling silver coins a couple of days ago, early last week, because they ran out of silver planchets, and they say that they're going to start selling them again to authorized purchasers soon. Very interesting to see how long it'll take them to get back into production, because the way the U.S. Mint works is they buy their blank silver rounds, and I mean rounds, they're blank, and then they stamp the Silver Eagle on one side, the Lady Walking Liberty on the other side, and that's how you get Silver Eagles. They get those rounds from Sunshine Minting and 2 other private companies, so it appears the holdup is there. Eli, define the differences in severity between a reset, collapse, and crash. Well, a reset can occur after a collapse or a crash. A reset can occur just because they decide they want to reset the system, and however reason they may want to do it, or for whatever, in whatever form they may want to do it. So a reset can happen in a collapse or a crash. A crash is just generally is a momentary collapse in the price of assets. So a stock market could crash, but that doesn't mean there's an economic collapse. It just means the stock market crashes. A crash could lead to a collapse. So if you have a bond market crash and then you have credit issues, that could lead to an economic collapse, which could then lead to a reset. But they all could happen separately. You can have a reset without a collapse or a crash. You can have a reset as a result of a collapse. You could have a reset because they see a crash and they want to fix it before it collapses. You can have a collapse and no reset. They just let the thing go back up. And you can have a crash without a collapse. Greetings, Penny Hoarder, says Max. Bob Silver. It's funny, just holding some silver in my hand makes me happy. It's a real good feeling. Well, that's, it's the same with gold and jewelry. That's another reason people have it. It's not always for the collapse or for stacking. People collect silver statues and gold items. From what I understand from Carl Joseph DeMarco, who is a Smaulgld subscriber, he says that he lived in China for a long time. The gold that they buy in China isn't like stacking gold. They buy like gold things that they like because they have money and they're rich and they can buy gold goblets or gold coins with pictures of famous Chinese people on them or famous historical. They don't just stack, and they don't really buy silver at all. It's stack. That stacking concept is pretty much a U.S. concept. India, they buy silver for jewelry. A lot of Europeans don't buy silver at all because of the VAT, although some people have told us that there's ways of getting around that. I mean, gold is the one that people hold for investment and jewelry, and silver is for jewelry and some investment. But I say the U.S., if you look at the mint numbers, the mint numbers are the biggest for silver in the U.S. by far. And if you also look at U.S. mint numbers from 1986 to 2009, the amount of silver sold versus the gold wasn't very much. That really ratcheted up. We started to sell a lot of silver from 2009 onwards, and silver's become very popular in the U.S. But in Mexico, I've heard that it's not a popular metal, even though it's a big metal producing place where they make a lot of silver. All right. Sure glad my name is Bob Silver, says Bob. Canadian metals. Mr. Butler does nothing to his reputation but tarnish it by claiming JP Morgan has bought high premium Eagles, Maples. Well, the idea, for me, if you buy Eagles, I can understand, and the speculation, you can have it on sound basis. Why wouldn't a JP Morgan, why wouldn't JP Morgan want to own silver? Well, that's an obvious answer. Why wouldn't they? I mean, you could say it's undervalued, but remember, they've been buying it undervalued since the 30 and 40, so they've been buying it on the way down. That doesn't make much sense, but let's say it made sense. They're buying it on the way down. They want to stack something physical. They want to make money off of it. I don't believe that, but I can get how you get there. But then what I don't get is if you were going to buy silver, you'd go out and buy it at the cheapest and most economical way. Buying silver Eagles, it makes really no sense, especially at this price, because if you have to be an authorized purchaser, which there's no indication that JP Morgan is an authorized purchaser, so they couldn't buy it. Well, they said, they make this direct purchase from the mint, and then they pay and then they don't pay the $2 over price. I mean, the idea that the U.S. Mint has to get silver planchets from a third party and then stamp them in the silver Eagles and then charge authorized purchasers $2 over the spot price of silver, no matter what the price is, and then they then sell them to the retail silver investors and the retail buyers. There's a big premium on Eagles because of that work, because they have to buy the planchets, they have to stamp the planchets, they have to get them into Eagles, and they sell them at $2 over spot to the authorized purchasers. Now, and I don't know the ins and outs of how he figured this out, but I can only guess that either JP Morgan buys them directly from the U.S. Treasury, which wouldn't make any sense. Why would the Treasury give them? Well, they're on their side. Okay, if they're on their side, why are they on their side? They're on their side to let JP Morgan get Eagles at a price lower than the $2. Then that means the mint is losing money on it because they still have to pay Sunshine Minting to get the planchette. So that wouldn't make any sense. Well, if they're in on some type of conspiracy, well, now you are talking a conspiracy. That this is an unmarked transaction, that somehow the U.S. Treasury wants to funnel silver to JP Morgan, and they're doing it through silver Eagles. Well, one theory is I heard somebody say, well, that's because the U.S. Mint is obligated to sell as much silver as the public demand. But they changed that rule 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 years ago to say as much as the Treasury Secretary in his opinion, thinks is necessary to meet demand. So I don't understand why JP Morgan would acquire silver through Silver Eagles or Maple Leafs, and it just doesn't make any sense to me, because anyone knows if you want to acquire large amounts of silver, you buy the largest bar and you get the lowest premium. Now, the other idea was, I had misinterpreted. I thought they were buying the Silver Eagles at the and that they would then sell them as Silver Eagles. I thought that made more sense. I thought, okay, well, now that you've got Silver Eagles, when the price goes higher, that $2 premium is not a big deal when you're selling them for $50, $70. Then I thought that wouldn't make any sense, because how are they going to get rid of Silver Eagles? Well, the answer was, I was wrong. That's not what the theory is. The theory is that they bought them and melted them down into the 1,000-ounce bars. That doesn't make such a sense to me either. That why would you? I mean, that's a lot of work and a lot of energy to get the silver planchets from the third-party companies, send them over to the U.S. Mint, then the U.S. Mint stamps them into Silver Eagles, ships them out to J.P. Morgan, then J.P. Morgan says, well, thanks for the Eagles. I don't need Eagles, I need 1,000-ounce bars, and then makes them into bars. Okay, so that's why I don't understand that. I mean, to each his own. If you believe that, you can believe that. I can't even believe that they would go out and buy 700, 800 million ounces of silver in any form. Just wouldn't make any sense. And then also, I've looked on their SEC report, and they don't list anything as holding any large amounts of physical metal. They mentioned they buy and sell it, but they don't indicate that. And then people say, well, you can't go by what they say. It's like, okay, so I got to go by what somebody else says? I mean, that's when you're in the point where you're saying you can't disprove that they haven't bought all this silver. No, I can't, but at the same time, I can't. The person or the people saying that they have all the silver can't prove it either. So I can throw out Goldman Sachs has 900 million ounces of silver. I can start that today. You can't tell me that they don't. Prove to me that they don't. And I say that they bought them from the Austrian Mint, the Perth Mint, and they've got all this silver. That's essential. I can rationalize that, why they would do that. Look, if JP Morgan is buying all that silver, then why isn't Goldman Sachs buying it? Goldman Sachs, I'm going to say today's got 300 million ounces of silver, and they're looking to get more. And you can't prove that they're not doing that. All right. Let's see. Drunk Octo. Hey, Lewis, I love your content. Listen to all aspects of silver metals. I realized today that you're like the devil's advocate of silver investing. Love the alternative perspective. Actually, my perspective isn't even alternative. The problem I have with this whole, almost all the silver analysts, one person says something, whatever it is, silver shortage, Comex default, commercials are going long, never happened before, commitment of traders, JP Morgan silver, then everybody just repeats it. A gold back yuan, that was another one. All I do is look at it and say, is it right? Did that happen? If it is right, and it's not just a cherry pick fact, is that what's going to happen as a result? What I see a lot of is rationalizing backwards. You're trying to get to a result. You're trying to get to something is going to drive silver and gold prices higher. So you either cherry pick a fact, you invent a fact, and then you rationalize what's going to happen from that little scenario. That means silver set to skyrocket. Do a Google search. Gold set to soar. Silver set to soar. Silver set to skyrocket. Always going to happen. There's always some story behind why. The latest one now is we're back to JP Morgan. We're back to historic commercials are now long for the first time in 17 years or whatever it is. So what? A lot of this stuff is so what. But they don't take it as so what. They take it as this is it. This is... maybe not now, but soon, or some people even put dates on it, or Shemitah, or whatever nonsense. What do you perceive as the most likely future for U.S. or us silver stackers? I don't know. I mean, go to the other channels, set the skyrocket, set the score, game changer coming up. I mean, how many years are you going to listen to the same nonsense? It really is nonsense. Every piece of data that they get, every piece is always, it's set to soar. And they never look to see, because I don't think they care, why hasn't the silver price gone up? Well, then the answer always comes back, well, it's manipulation. All right. So why would you think that if you believe in that there's manipulation, why would you believe the manipulation would end? Why would you believe that? If they need to keep silver price down, if you show how silver is manipulated, Why is that going to change? Because you have a new theory or you have something new to sell? I mean, why do you think that the manipulation is going to stop? The old one they used to say, they don't say it much anymore, is they used to say, JP Morgan is losing control, or someone is losing control. Everyone's going to lose control. And then they stop with that, because I used to hear all the time, elites are losing control, someone's losing control, silver set to skyrocket, alert, alert, double alert, this never happened before, Comex on the verge of default. I don't know. I don't even think I'm offering an alternative perspective. I'm just looking at what I see. All right, Howdy says, Internet Tough Guy. Anita, still talking about silver and gold, how much can you talk about it? Well, Anita A, the reason we're talking about it is I'm looking at this historic change. You may want to go back and to the beginning and look at the charts, and you'll see what we were talking about, why we're talking about it. I don't try to invent reasons to talk about silver. I mean, it is a silver gold economics channel and cryptocurrencies. I wasn't even going to talk about silver tonight, but I happened to notice that the JP Morgan vault went down in silver held, and I wanted to look at the commitment of traders report with the commercials and the non-commercials and the net longs and the net shorts, and in looking at it I noticed that maybe the reason that the commercials are now net long is they've been net short for such a long time that it only made sense, and they're not really that long. They're we'll have to follow this through, but I don't think it means anything, and that's why we're covering it again tonight. Anita A, internet eye typing on a tiny mobile phone. What about industrial demand? What about it? Industrial demand is not going up or down in any significant amount. And when people tell you, oh, they're finding uses for it all the time. Exactly. People want to be told what is true because they aren't comfortable with uncertainty. No, I think people want to be told what they want to hear. You see, this idea that somehow they're finding uses for it all the time. Silver is so important in our lives. You could say that about copper. You really can. You can't drink water without copper. It goes through pipes. Copper's been money for 5,000 years. What's the copper-silver ratio? You don't know, do you? Is it overvalued or is it undervalued? It's all designed to tell you that somehow silver is the grandest thing on the planet. I like silver. And it's this whole idea with the gold-silver ratio is unsustainable at 50, at 60, at 70, at 80, at 85. It's coming out of the ground. All these relative rarity arguments are nonsense. Relative rarity means nothing when determining price. I'll say it again. I've made 3 drawings. Picasso's made thousands. Going on the relative rarity argument, my paintings, my drawings should be worth more than Picasso, and it's only a matter of time until it happens. Wrong goes star. Platinum comes out of the ground at a rate 1/10 that gold comes out of the ground. Gold is 150% more than platinum. This idea that the gold-silver ratio is unsustainable, no, it just depends on whether anyone wants gold or anyone wants silver and how much more they want gold than silver. I do like copper, though. You're right. Roger BF. Yes, very good question. Did you used to believe in the silver story and then had an epiphany or even more in favor of gold? No, I used to believe in both stories. And the quick background is I started the blog back in 2013. Was primarily for my real estate consulting business, and I couldn't write about real estate all the time. And I figured it was my blog. I was going to start writing about gold and silver as well. I figured it was hard assets. And what I saw, I started to read all the famous people that write about gold and silver. Of course, all of them were bullish. And they would give scenarios about what was going to happen, Comex default, or whatever it was. And then after about a year or so, I started doing a lot of research, and I said, how come these fantastical situations, set to skyrocket, set to score, all this stuff never happened? And I started digging into numbers, and I really did my research. And then I started realizing there was a pattern. They would trot out these stories all the time about Comex default every year or so. And people would forget that there was already this story had come out before. Or, the one with the gold-backed yuan, I was ready for that one. And I did my research, and there was nothing to indicate that China had announced anything about a gold-backed yuan. That was something that appeared in the Asian Nikkei review. I looked at who they cited as source. There were no sources for that. And that's when I realized that there is in my mind, there is a very strong, it's either hyper bullish to the point they don't see anything that could possibly be negative about gold, or it's intentional, that they just come up with they're delusional. They make up these pumper stories, And I just don't understand how you can say the same thing for 6-7 years and never understand why didn't that happen? Why didn't gold or silver soar on whatever the latest story was? Whether it was Comex default, gold-backed yuan, commitment of traders. There's always something. There's always something on the horizon. And when that doesn't happen, people forget because then they got a new story out there. Oh, 45 days, sovereign size gold buy alert, alert. This never happened before. China's going to crush the dollar. There's always some story out there. So my epiphany was not that silver or gold are better than each other. I learned the historic nature of gold and silver. I looked at the gold-silver ratio over the last few hundred years. I didn't just look at the ratio. I looked at what happened in the 20s. I looked at what happened during the gold rushes. I looked at what happened when they fixed the price of gold at $35 an ounce from 1934 to 1971. I looked at what happened after Nixon took the U.S. off the gold standard. I didn't just look at the ratios. I looked at the different production figures over the years, over the last 50 and 100 years for gold and silver. So I did a lot of research. I didn't just look at these generalities. Silver is so useful and therefore silver is undervalued. What does that even mean? That doesn't mean anything. Say the same about zinc. You have to know something about the numbers. What direction is the demand going? How much are we talking about? How many ounces of silver are required for these fantastic new medical uses? How much silver? And people are satisfied with, oh, that's it. Well, that's, it's the whole, that is all I need to know. Central banks are buying gold. That is all I need to know. How much gold are they buying? Who's buying it? These are the questions I ask myself. I report on the Russian central bank gold acquisitions every month. People get excited about it. I have charts going back the last 6 or 7 years. Zero Hedge publishes it probably every 3 times I publish it. But it's taken out of context because the amount of gold that Russia adds is about 200 tons a year. They've done that for the last 3 years. It's only worth $70 billion, their entire 2,000-ton hoard. Look at Turkey. They were buying gold. Well, now you just had to sell a lot of it. So it comes down to me is that these pieces of data, when you hear it, if you just take it in isolation, you say, Russia is buying gold. That is all I need to know. They are going to crush the dollar. No, it doesn't mean that. You have to know how much gold they're buying, where they're buying it from, which is from their own supply, and what their own financial situation is, who they trade with. I looked into it. The thing, Roger, was that I didn't get an epiphany. I did my own research, and I looked at it not from the point of view is, how do I come up with stories to make it seem like gold and silver are going to rise? I started uncovering the stories and saying, well, that doesn't mean what they were saying, that gold and silver is going to rise. And then when it didn't rise, I said, well, of course it didn't mean that because they predicted something on the basis of some pump and it didn't happen. So obviously they're wrong. But because in the community, the people that are wrong all the time get repeated and they all repeat each other's stuff and everybody else who follows it repeats it and they hang on, they cling to it like it's going to happen, it's going to happen. It's just early. I believe the silver story and the dollar hyperinflation for a few months in 2007 that I worked out the deflationary collapse is more likely. Okay, I read the travels of Marco Polo, says Roger. Found it interesting that Polo would regularly mention the gold-silver ratio in various regions of Chinese Empire. The ratio was 1 to 5 or 1 to 10 at most. Okay, now you have to imagine that during the times of Marco Polo, the world was a different place. Also, what I would say, however, what is different today is why the ratio shouldn't be the same. Silver has no monetary value at all right now. None. It's got no monetary value at all. Gold has barely a monetary value because only central banks have it and use it as a monetary metal. Silver has been demonetized. No one uses it as a currency. It has monetary qualities, but it's not valued in a monetary way. And that's another reason why gold, in my opinion, is worth more because at least there is a conception that it has monetary value. It's held as a tier 1 or 2 asset, and banks will hold it. They don't hold silver. And also, there's a lot of differences between the uses of silver. The value of gold jewelry versus silver jewelry, it's immense. Engagement rings, wedding rings. You're not going to get by with a silver ring. It's just not going to happen. You'll pay the premium for the gold ring. There's the gold standard. There's someone who's good as gold. You get a gold medal. There's a big difference between gold and silver. I'm not saying silver is not valuable. It's just the only reason they had those ratios, in my mind, and I've read about this, is that when they wanted to have a monetary or bimetallic standard, they had a set. Remember, anytime the government has a standard, a gold standard, it means that they control the price. So when the U.S. had the gold standard, and the price was set at $35 an ounce since 1934 by an act of Congress. But when you want to have a bimetallic standard, you got to pick some ratio between the two, and you pretty much take it out of the free market. So I think the U.S. had like 16 to 1, 15 to 1. But in the free market, they won't necessarily value those two metals. Remember, Americans weren't allowed to own gold from 1934 to 1971 or 74, which meant that the price of gold couldn't rise based on its non-monetary value, and the monetary value was held down by law, which meant that silver could rise, but gold couldn't. And even then, silver didn't. You never got to a 16 to 1 ratio. So that shows you that even and the $35 price that they set it at was not inflated. It may have been inflated in 1934 when they moved the price up from $20.67. But in 1971, when the price of gold was still $35 an ounce, that was purely because of manipulation, and they were trying it through the London Gold Pool to keep the price at $35 an hour. And silver wasn't going anywhere. All right, let's see. I'm going to tie my silver to my leg and jump into the river. Yeah. The dollar collapse would most likely be due to an internal collapse of civil war in the U.S. That's an interesting point. That's when silver stackers might be justified. Yeah, but when you're in those situations, you need your rifle, your handgun, and the silver is not the most important thing at that point. All right, everyone. Well, I want to thank you for listening. Sorry I was late. I'll be back tomorrow again at 8 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. I want to go through some of the highlights of the Litecoin Summit, not so much for the purpose of discussing Litecoin, but really to discuss it looks like, from what I'm seeing, from what they're talking about, is where I've been saying the cryptocurrencies have been going all along. They're not some bank killer where everybody destroys the central banks by trading in crypto. And it's also not one where they're worried that the governments are going to shut them down. It looks like this whole thing is moving into becoming an adjunct or integrated part of the payment system or the banking system. We'll talk about that tomorrow. Thank you very much for listening. Don't forget, this podcast goes much faster and you get more enjoyment out of it if you are a Smaulgld subscriber at smaulgld.com. Also, if you've got your Smaulgld mug, generally you can listen in and get your Smaulgld Classic and Super Classic mug or other. That's how I make money here. I don't make money. I lose money, but that's all right. Smaulgld products is how I make back some of the money. You can become a Smaulgld patron. So I even lose my voice for you guys. Smaulgld patrons, I think there's about a dozen of those. I'm up to about $60 a month. It's quite a living, isn't it? And also you can donate via Bitcoin. Actually, you know what you can donate through? I'm going to show you something really cool. You can donate via PayPal too. But if you really want to be one of the cool people, and only one person is taking me up on this option. I've gotten Bitcoin before, but if you happen to have Litecoin, I want to show you something here that you'll really like. You can donate. You could just go right up to your screen with your phone if you've got one of those wallets or something, and you can donate direct to Smaulgld via Litecoin. And there it is coming up on your screen. If you have a wallet on your phone, I think Loaf is one of the popular ones, you just put send, you hold up your phone, you grab that code, and Litecoin comes to Smaulgld. I think it's very interesting how easy it is to send that Litecoin to me, because if you're going to send PayPal, first of all, you're going to send it, then it's going to come to me. They're going to take, like, if you send me $5, I'll get $4.11 or something. At least when you send the Litecoin, you get the whole Litecoin. John Batale wants to know where you can buy my art. I have to find it. I mean, 2 of them are drawings and 1 of them's a painting. But I'll tell you this, it costs millions, billions maybe, given how rare it is compared to Picasso's. And there is your PayPal. And, oh, you've got the Litecoin up there, but let me give you a Bitcoin address if you really want to be a pal and send Bitcoin. Here's the Bitcoin address. But thank you very much for listening, and we'll see you again tomorrow night, 8 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. Remember, the mugs get shipped priority mail. It's free shipping, and you get them, I'll mail them out on Monday, and you will get them probably midweek or Thursday. And there's the Bitcoin. All right. Thank you very much. Have a good night.